Hello everybody, today I decided to compile a number of mistakes, misconceptions, things that you may be curious about when it comes to Granblue, especially as we enter kind of the waiting phase for the next patch and a lot of people enter into the late game or start farming. Let's get into it. And to start things off, I'm going to test the myth about whether or not Dizzy and Glass Cannon works. Let's get into it. Okay, now assuming Dizzy resistance actually makes sense or Dizzy immunity makes sense, the second that I get hit by this mob, I should not get dizzied. I shouldn't have the little chicken icon. Let's take a look. And this myth is busted. This does not work. Okay, now the next thing I want to talk about is about curios. But long story short, if you took a look at the site, not only do you have the drop rates for certain things, you could take a look at something like death taxes and goblins. You could see the rate of certain curios dropping, and you could see that when it comes to maniac stages, you have an 80% chance to receive a curio in general. If you are in the proud stage, you have a guaranteed chance to get curios. The thing that people are really fixating on right now is the tier 4 curio and how to get the most of the tier 4 curio. Okay, now formerly I had made a video talking about how if you want to get the most bang for your buck when it comes to getting curios and getting a couple resources or getting other resources at the same time, you could do something like I See a Grim Vision. And I've also seen some people say that with a stage like Icy Eye on the Holy Prize, this single Nazar Bonju can actually be cleared in as quick as 15 seconds, which is pretty crazy just because, again, it's a 2.4% chance. And again, there's an 80% chance for you to get a curio in general. But something that I decided to kind of test myself was, if you are only kind of fixating on the speed of clears because all you're looking for is curios and you've probably got millions of resources at this point, what is stopping you from clearing something like Extreme? And the answer is literally nothing. So what I decided to do was test some of the other stages, maybe something like Magliel, which rightfully so was absolutely ridiculous and it does literally nothing. But as you can see here, you've actually only lost a 10% chance to get a curio and a 0.3% chance to get a tier 4 curio. But if you take a look at the specific stage, Saga Illustrated the beginning, it does have a 2.1% chance to drop a tier 4 curio alongside, again, only boasting a 10% less chance to get a curio in general. If you decide to run the stage that I just mentioned, which again is the extreme stage, not only are you able to turn on the assist mode, which again, if you're AFKing at this point, you might as well just have it on. We're just trying to min-max the fastest stage to get curios at this point, if you're looking into this. But again, if you're looking for the fastest clear and you want to do mana armor and you want curios, take a look at how fast the stage goes. Just so you guys can see, again, I have no effect here. Well, I don't know why my guy is not attacking here. All right, well, I wasn't even attacking. I'm not really sure why my AI, it might be because I have like my video software open or something, but I literally did nothing here. Like Lancelot literally did nothing here. And if you didn't see, that was a 7-second run. So presumably if I hit the boss literally at all, it would come down to like a 5 or even like a 6-second run. And for proof, if you're curious, we have the end stage. You can see the curios, you can see exactly what you get. You've got a bunch of these things, but none of them really matter because all you're looking for is the curios. Note that you do also get Fortitude Crystal Mediums, which is really valuable, again, if you're trying to upgrade weapons and stuff, but that's besides the point. You're just here for the curios. Okay, now on the topic of AFK or stuff that has to do with AI, something that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about, specifically when you're building out your AI and stuff, is that if your character or your AI, which presumably will have Glass Cannon equipped and all damage, does happen to have a skill that gives Stout Heart, akin to what Percival has, the AI will just not dodge. Now, normally that's not a problem when you can beat up the boss in 0.2 seconds, but if you are fighting a boss where the boss will end up hitting you, or if the boss is kind of prolonged and they'll try to hit you, if you have Stout Heart up, your character will just get knocked over, no questions asked, and you get dizzied. Okay, so this time we're actually going to see what happens when, again, Percival decides to use his Stout Heart ability, and again, even though he does have Stout Heart, he also has Glass Cannon on, so he just doesn't dodge. Yeah, look. Yeah. So, look. Okay, so right there, instead of deciding to dodge, he has Stout Heart on, so he thinks that he is, like, just him, basically, right? So instead of deciding to dodge, he just gets hit, does not decide to dodge, and, again, tanks the Glass Cannon, which is not very good. And normally, if he doesn't have Stout Heart available, it would be fine, but again, since he does have a skill that self-provides him with Stout Heart, it just means that he gets punished and therefore loses out on damage. And again, if you're doing this for speedruns or for anything like that, that's obviously a clear issue because he's just not hitting, he's just getting stunned, etc, etc. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is the sigil roll the die, because I've definitely seen a lot of people say, haha, yeah, well, like, what if I roll the, use roll the die and I can do infinite damage? Well, take a look at the max damage that you can do on a character right now, which again for me is going to be, let's see, like the 25,000-ish range, right? Like the 25.8k-ish range, you could see it, right? Like my individual hits are kind of rounding out to about 26,000. Now, based off of how roll the die sounds, it should read specifically that if I put it on, I should have, again, something crazy like 100,000 on a hit. What it says is the 4 times multiplier here ignores damage cap for a max of 999,999. Otherwise, attacks only deal 1 damage, but although that is literally the text that it reads, that literally does not make sense because, of course, when you go ahead and look at the actual hits themselves, I'm doing no damage, and then, again, so I'm doing a bunch of 1s, right, which is very bad. And then, again, I'm still getting the supplementary damage from it. But on occasion, instead of the 1s, I get my 25,816, which is obviously nowhere near what the 999,000 cap of roll the die is supposed to be. Not a good sigil. While we're on the topic of sigils, another thing that I think a lot of people are kind of curious about is the Berserker sigil, because again, Berserker does sound pretty good. It does give you a lot of increase, and although a lot of people are kind of turned away from the idea of Berserker just specifically because, again, you aren't able to dodge or roll as per what it says here. So what it says here is that it boosts attack power, but it disables dodging and guarding. That's actually not the case, especially if you are a Lancelot player. Now, the actual applications of this are kind of neither here nor there because you can just use stamina and combo booster if you want to reach damage. But it is actually possible, as you could see here, for me to, again, use my specific dodge. Lancelot is one of the unique characters in the game that actually does have a dodge like this. You see, like, you could see when I'm jumping, you can see when I'm hitting, but the dodge button over there, it's trying to do stuff, but it's not letting me do anything. Whereas the twin battle dance, all of this is available. All of this is giving me access to it. So if for whatever reason you want to use Berserker and bypass things, or you don't have enough damage sigils, you can technically use it if you are just reliant on, again, the dodge from Lancelot's right click. Okay, now another thing that I have seen a lot of people ask about is specifically improved healing, and although it isn't really that relevant, especially because the only time you'd really use improved healing is if you're like doing some AFK strat, this skill in theory sounds like it would be pretty good, especially if, again, it could affect something like drain or regen. So although it does say healing skills, they literally do mean only healing skills. And just for proof of it, I just want to show you guys like about how much damage I'd be taking if, again, I get hit by like the enemies in worst vacation ever. Right now, I'm going to show you what it's like when I have like normal regen. I'm going to take a bunch of damage and then just get hit and then see how much I regen for. As you can see, I am getting healed for about 4,360. That's the power of a max drain, which is really cool, of course. Okay, so I've got the same exact health. I just don't have improved or whatever. Okay, now if I take damage again here, okay, 4,360 once again. Same amount of healing, there's no difference. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is invincibility and dodges, and specifically how perfect dodges, or again, evasion, works in this game. So I equipped Flight Over Fight just to show you exactly how it works, or exactly how the invincibility and stuff works. But as you can see here, whenever I dodge now, it is a perfect dodge, and for perfect dodges, you get 3 seconds worth of invincibility, which we'll test out right now. Okay, so now we have here, and if we dodge, as you can see here, we can literally only have a few seconds there, right? So you saw it, like, even though I'm, attempting to dodge, it's like 1, 2, and immediately, as you can see, it's a very, very quick window of getting hit. You dodge, and if you don't have any other sigils, it's about 3 seconds. But now let's test it alongside a nimble, or one of the nimble sigils. Okay, so now, as you can see, we should get an additional 3 seconds of invincibility, which again makes sense. That's how it works. Now we have 6 total seconds of invincibility, which should work, like, just because that's how the sigil works, and there's no bugs with the character. Okay, well, now assuming we do the same level of dodging, we should have been getting hit, or we should get hit here, but we still aren't getting hit. 6 seconds. It is much, much longer, but if you do another dodge, hit me, please. it is a much longer duration. And in theory, if I have both nimble defenses or nimble things on at the same time, I should have 9 seconds of invincibility. Let's test it. Okay, so again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There you go. The next thing I'm going to talk about is a little bit controversial, and it has to do with honors. Now, a lot of people use it as a gauge for how much damage you do, and although it is, you know, a generally good indicator of how much impact you have on a match, if you are for some reason interested in seeing how much damage you do, there is no way currently in-game without third party to actually see how much damage you do. So what exactly makes up the honor system then? Do you actually gain anything from gaining buffs and stuff like that? So we're gonna test right now if you can get a lot of honor without doing any damage whatsoever. Okay, so Garrison is here. If I'm not mistaken, my second skill should be a heal. I think it is a heal. They can take a little bit of damage, I guess. If I just throw out the heal to them, they're getting healed. I'm not doing any damage whatsoever. I'm going to use my potion on them. I'm going to cast another skill. I think Phantasmagoria is also a buff, but no touching of the boss whatsoever. No damage was done on my behalf. Let's take a look at the honors. But look at that. Even with all that was just done, I did 3.5 million honors just from healing twice and using a blue potion. That was it. I got almost half of the Zeta's damage, and she's on a fully kitted damage build, and she was the MVP. Long story short, you shouldn't always fixate on MVP or the honors for a good indicator of damage. It literally just means how valuable you were to the team in terms of both healing, buffing, etc, etc. Okay, now the next section I want to talk about specifically deals with stamina and tyranny, and why not all damage sigils are created equal. Now, the main reason why I bring this up is because there's a lot of debate about whether or not you should be using something like critical hit damage, or if you should be using concentrated fire. But let me explain why stamina is the best, followed in suit primarily by tyranny, which is kind of tied by combo booster, especially if you're able to maintain it. And then that is pretty much equal to or replaced by life on the line, followed by literally everything else on this list. Now, there's an individual named bleed_ on this note site that did a lot of explaining about specifically how combo booster works. And just in general, there's a lot of things in the game that feel kind of deceptive or don't really seem that explanatory or aren't that clear. But if you're ever curious why something like critical damage isn't actually good, well, here's your explanation. Okay, so the first thing that we have to talk about is critical damage, and the reason why critical damage is actually really bad and it doesn't really make sense right now, or the way that it scales doesn't really make sense, is because critical hit damage at the moment does not actually scale with your masteries that you have to go through all the tree and upgrade with mastery points. It has nothing to do with the tree, and therefore the scaling of critical damage is really poor. And for the debate between combo booster and life on the line, this argument kind of comes down to whether or not you can maintain your booster. But again, with the page that I'll leave in the comment section for you to read, there are a lot of things that actually end up working with combo booster. The mechanic is really, really deceptive. Now, again, there's certain things that I'll let the creator, Mr. Bleed, kind of go through and kind of explain. But long story short, he goes through every single thing that kind of affects the combo booster, what doesn't. In short, combo booster is much better if you're able to continue your combo, which makes sense. And if you ever have any downtime, you can of course obviously just commit to life on the line. However, another thing that you should know about life on the line is that unfortunately, life on the line actually stacks additively for some reason with tyranny, which again doesn't really make any sense and is pretty much why a lot of people like using combo booster over life on the line. Okay, so the next thing that we have to talk about is multiplicative versus additive, and kind of the reason why life in the line is not actually better in most cases than combo booster. And although combo booster, tyranny, and stamina are all additive with each other, which again gives you a bunch of damage, life on the line is unfortunately multiplicative with tyranny, which makes absolutely no sense. And so therefore, even though you would in theory want to gain more damage or just get more damage, and again, in 99% of other cases, it's just additive for other cases, for whatever reason, life in line, which should be your third go-to damage sigil, is just worse because for whatever reason, it's multiplicative, it's not additive when it should be. As long story short, it does less damage, so that's why it's just worse than combo booster. Okay, and finally, as a little bit of a random tidbit, I decided to just look at Eugen, or I was just looking up stuff about Eugen, and I found out that, as you can see here, I'm doing something like 113,000 on, like, you know, my grenade tosses, and it's like 96,000. You're looking at ballpark around 100,000 damage when it comes to just having basically your damage cap on. And for me, all I've got is my weapon. I've just got these random damage cap things on. But actually, if you were ever curious about what the throw sigil does, you can actually see it increases his damage. I know it sounds kind of dumb, like, oh, well, of course it's a thrown weapon, but like, honestly, I kind of, like most people, I'm sure, thought that thrown things kind of, you know, were related to or included, you know, barrels on the ground. I wasn't aware of the fact that you could hit, again, 100% increased damage, specifically on Eugen's grenades. I mean, like, what is this, right? Like, what? I'm doing 200k now. You know what I mean? Like, why am I doing so much damage? Anyways, guys, those were hopefully some things that you didn't know about the game. Maybe some things that you won't make mistakes about. As always, guys, I'm just kind of here to bring awareness or kind of bring things up. If you notice anything was off or want to add more information, again, I appreciate any feedback, any support, any clarification on things that I'm just not aware about. I'm more than happy to discover new things or kind of change, you know, opinions or things whenever new things get brought up. But ultimately, guys, again, thank you so much for watching. This was something that I was kind of working on for a while because I was always curious about certain things, but normally what I'd have to do is just sit there and ask people in Discord or ask if anyone had experienced this. So I finally decided to just sit down and see if certain myths or stuff like that worked or kind of cleared up some misunderstandings. But again, as always, guys, thank you again for watching and supporting. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, turn the notification bell, and subscribe. I hope you have a lovely evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Make sure to check out the stream where I stream both on Twitch and YouTube, specifically GrandBlue and various other stuff, maybe some other gacha games. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it. Make sure to check out the rest of my socials as well. I will see you all in the next one. Adios.